This is the Become the Lion podcast. If you are aiming to become the top in your industry, not second, not above average, the top, then you have come to the right place. Become the Lion will provide you with weekly insights and motivation needed from our guests on how to escape the common herd that society lives in. If you're looking to change your life, then get ready. Welcome to Become the Lion.
Hi, this is Trevor Nicholas from Become the Lion. Today on the show, we have Kevin and Devona Stimson. Kevin and Devona are the founders of Strive and Grind. They're helping entrepreneurs thrive in business and achieve the freedom they desire through branding and creative design. Kevin and Devona, welcome to Become the Lion.
Hey, thank you for having us.
What's up, guys? Hey, Trevor. Thanks so much, man. We really appreciate it. We're honored to be here.
And Kevin and Devona, for our audience out there who might be listening, do you mind explaining a little bit about how you got started in entrepreneurship, or why did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, man. So I'll start it off. So I guess it was really me. So let's go back to 2000. Let's see, what was it? Let's go back to 2011. So 2011, I was interning for a Fortune 300 railroad company. And during that time, you know, I was like, man, I want to be an IT professional. That's where my background is. It's in information systems and technology. And, you know, I went into the IT field. And so my goal was essentially to climb that ladder. But during that point in time where I started interning for the first time during my junior year in college, I just realized that really wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to live. I realized that after, 10, 12, 13 plus years in grade school and going into this corporate America world, which was the dream that, your parents tell you to do and your society tells you to do. And then you get there and be like, man, you're really just having this out of body experience. Like, wow, is this really what I want to do for the next 20, 30, 40 years? So I had that going on. And then during that time, I was reading a lot of books, and I started thinking about how would it feel to really become wealthy? And I know that in my family and also Devona's family, we have no wealthy people in our family. And I wouldn't be surprised if any of our families combined had more than $200,000 in their bank account. And, I think it would be much less than that. And so we said, we want to be rich, we want to be wealthy, and we want to create something that matters. So fast forward a couple years, I do end up graduating college. I end up going into corporate America in a Fortune 200 science company. And I get inside this thing called a leadership development program. And over a 2-year time frame, I'm learning the ropes of information systems and technology. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm getting management and leadership skills. And there was just this thing that I realized. While I was at that company, I had about 5 IT vice presidents who mentored me during that time frame. And I was able to reach out to them whenever I had questions about certain things. And I just realized that they were in a place that I didn't want to be. Most of the men, they were traveling internationally every 2 weeks. They didn't spend a lot of time with their family. Many of them didn't have wedding bands. They were frustrated. They were stressed out. And some of them were even getting laid off. And these guys were at the top of the food chain. They're making like $250,000 plus $500,000 a year. So then I'm like, all right, there must be a meaning in this, meaning that means that your job isn't 100% secure if you're making all this money, but you get laid off too at the same time. So then we really get dived in. We start going to conferences, we start going to events, listen to more podcasts, reading more books. And then essentially we're like, hey, we're going to go all in on this thing. So, fast forward 2 years after joining the corporate America world, we got the opportunity to move to San Diego from Boston, Massachusetts. And literally within, I'd say, 3 or 4 months of touching down in San Diego, we went to our first entrepreneur conference. And then from there, we joined a mastermind, and we hired a business coach. And then we said, you know what, we're going to start an entrepreneur, or we're going to start a branding and creative company, because we realized that if we're going to start a company, we want to start a company that serves other entrepreneurs because we believe so much in it. And the rest is history after that. That's how Strive and Grind was born. That's how the branding and creative company was born.
That was excellent. And I was taking notes as you were talking, and there's definitely some questions I want to ask you. But the first question I want to say is, you said that your combined family's, money value or net worth might have been not even more than $200,000. Why didn't you let that paradigm of money hold you back? Like, I feel like a lot of times when someone's starting out, if they don't have a lot of money, they say, "Hey, someone else has a lot of money, or because I don't have a lot of money, I can't become successful." Why didn't that stop you?
I think it's interesting because I think as millennials, we kind of go up against the grain, and we're a little bit less conservative and actually more of like risk takers.
Yeah.
And so for our families, their risk tolerance is quite low, right? They have their mortgages. They got, Devona's parents still have a kid in the household, and my parents still have things that they got to do. So
it's just like sticking to what they know and
Right.
sticking to their comfort zone.
Yeah. So absolutely. So you got that, sticking to what they know, sticking to their comfort zones. And then for us, we're willing to try things new. And, at the time we're young, right? So right now I'm 28, Devona's 26, but at the time we're like 23, 24, just getting out of college. And we're like, let's do this thing. Let's figure this thing out. And
Yeah.
so we realized that, hey, we didn't have the resources and the money at our fingertips, but we went into credit card debt, other people's money, to actually get those resources so we could use that as an investment, and then also have the frame of thinking and a mindset around, hey, this is going to be nothing but a return on our investment. So we'll go into 10,000, 20 grand, 30 grand of credit card debt for business, but we know that's going to make us 100,000, 200,000 and beyond on the back end.
Yeah. And then I think it also helped too, like Kevin said, once we came to San Diego, the huge entrepreneurial hub, and we went to our first entrepreneur event. It's like when you put yourself around people who are making this money, who are creating, these lifestyles of like working from home, staying home with their family or traveling or, just creating the life that they want while also making a shit ton of money. Like it makes everything seem possible regardless of your background and regardless of your upbringing.
What was the leap like from working a job to going full time into entrepreneurship?
What was the leap like?
Awesome.
Yeah, it was. So it was so cool. So literally that same week. So real quick, I actually just wrote a Facebook post like 30 minutes ago. Today is actually our 1 year anniversary of leaving our day job, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah.
So it was really cool seeing that memory pop up in my Facebook feed saying, hey, today I just chucked the deuces to the day job to build my empire and work for myself full time. And now we're in such a blessed and a well-positioned spot. But what was that feeling like? It just felt like freedom, a whole lot of relief and weight off of our shoulders. We felt like, the world is ours and that we can just conquer things. Literally that same week, I think we closed an $8,000 deal. And we were like, wow, we could just keep doing this over and over and over again. So, yeah, it was a great feeling.
And it was pretty funny, too, because, we moved to California in 2015. I was doing graphic design. I was working part-time jobs as well, while Kevin was working in corporate America, and I freelance and things like that. And we just both knew that we were going to be quitting our jobs. We didn't know when, but we just knew at some point soon. And when we came to California, it was just kind of like going down this path of trying to build, our Strive and Grind, our branding and creative boutique. And while we were at our day jobs, we were working on Strive and Grind and not working on, the stuff that we were supposed to work on at our jobs. And so, I think we're pretty blessed and thankful that we were able to do that without getting caught and, having the freedom to kind of do that. But it was just kind of doing that up until that point where we were like talking to coworkers and being like, hey, they think that we're still focused on the company and where we are in the company, but we knew deep down that we were actually going to be leaving soon. So it was pretty funny to actually eventually put in the 2 weeks notice and be like, hey, we're actually starting our own company and doing this thing on our own.
And I noticed you mentioned how you're using other people's money, going into credit card debt to help build the company. Was there ever any fear that happened to you? Like you said to yourself, what happens if this doesn't work out? Or did you just know that it was going to succeed?
We had no option. When you invest that much money into yourself and your business, you don't have any other option but to succeed.
And it kicks you into high gear too, right? Like, so for us, when we hired our mentor, it was, a $36,000 package over a year time. And we're like, holy crap. Like, we just got out of college. We have student loan debt. Like,
we just moved to California, the most expensive state.
Yeah, I had just bought a car, and here we go again. Like, we're about to drop 36 grand. So for us, it was like, hey, these monthly payments are going to be $3,000 a month. So if you get, say, $10,000, $15,000 worth of credit card, and you have that goes towards this mentorship program, you need to be making in the next 3 months, you need to be making at least $3,000 a month. And so it didn't leave any room to be conservative. It didn't leave any room to just like, oh, we're just going to, ride the wave and figure things out. We had to be aggressive. We had to go all in and take massive, massive action.
And I have to give a shout out, too, to our mentor, Cole Hatter, who actually spoke at that event and talked to us and the audience about good debt versus bad debt. That helped us kind of switch our mindset and change our whole perspective about money and debt and investing in ourselves. So that was a big key player in that.
And for our audience listening, Cole is his conference Thrive?
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about it for our audience who might not know what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Thrive is a conference. It's Cole Hatter's annual event. He brings the top entrepreneurs, world changers, game makers from across the globe, and they come together for a weekend, and he's all about making your money matter. So creating for-purpose businesses. And so it's like, hey, how cool is it to create a massive company, create great impact, but you're also, giving your money back to at the same time, and, donating the proceeds of, your profits or your revenue to other organizations in need and things like that. So it's a very, very great event. I think it's actually coming up again this year in September, I believe.
Yeah.
As you were growing Strive and Grind, what were some of the challenges that you had to overcome?
That's like a really loaded question. But to name a few, I'll start with one is figuring out how to work with your significant other. So Kevin and I are married. We've been together for 10 years. We were high school sweethearts. We met on MySpace. So we basically grew up together through, school, life, and in business. And so we were both, it was really a big challenge was trying to figure out how to work together. And it took a long time. I mean, there was a lot of arguments, fighting, and we just had to figure out how to balance each other out as far as working personalities go. So, it's one thing to figure out how to work with each other just in, regular life and relationship. But when it comes to business, when it comes to something serious, it's always about trying to figure out, making sure that we're in alignment where we're trying to take this thing, and then just figuring out how we can respect each other's boundaries and communicate better and things like that. So, I mean, that's still something we continuously work on, but it was definitely a huge struggle in the beginning.
Right. I think another one was, being able to effectively communicate and have sales conversations and get people to want to actually buy into what your product or service is. Being able to charge premium pricing without having any prior to knowledge experience. What were some others? I mean, I remember actually even for us, there came a time where, we didn't know how we were going to pay the next month's rent. And we just like, man, how are we going to do this thing? And then, we couldn't blame anyone else other than ourselves. And, we actually came into the mindset and the belief that, hey, you're in this moment right now because you're supposed to be. And so what are you actually going to do about it? And I think that was one of the big monumental shifts in our development personally, but also in the growth of our business, because now we will never, ever be comfortable again, like just be chilling and comfortable with where we are with our business. It's always about growth. It's always about taking things to the next level. And it's all about just really holding yourself accountable for where you are. So if you're not making money, that's because you're not doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing. If you're not generating leads and getting prospects to come to you, then you're not doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing. If you're not serving your clients well and, they're you have a huge turnover rate and they're all dropping you like flies, then that's on you. You're obviously not fulfilling from a customer service and a customer experience perspective. So once we were able to really just check ourselves across the board, accountability wise, that's when things really started to shift and change for us.
And this is the first time I've had a couple on the podcast, so this is one of the few times I think I'll ever be able to ask this question. But what advice would you give for someone who's listening, who's working with their significant other, to make the relationship work, whether in the dating relationship and the working relationship?
Look, I believe that if you can get through business problems, you can get through business in itself with your partner or your significant other, you can literally solve or get through any other relationship problem you may have. One of the big challenges that we had early on was, for me, it was hard to have a turnoff switch for the company. And for Devona, it was much easier for her to be able to turn it off. But being able to, have that time where you value the business is game time, is game mode, we're working, you're doing your thing, but you also need to have time for intimacy, have time for love, have time for supporting one another and actually being a couple and being in a relationship too. I think especially early on when you're first starting your business, 90% of your time could easily just go towards business. You don't even talk about how your day is. You don't have time possibly to go out and have a date night and do this and do that because, money may be tight or you're just so focused on growing a business. But I think that, and I think Devona can vouch for this too, you have to set in and schedule time to specifically work on the business, but also set aside time specifically as well to, grow your marriage, grow your relationship, and grow that partnership with your significant other.
And I would also add to that, just making sure you and your partner, I don't believe having a business and working with your significant other is for everybody. I think it's worth a try. But if you do plan to go into business with your partner, you have to be on the same page and you have to have the same vision and you have to be just as driven. Because for us, there was a struggle in the beginning because before we moved to California, we moved from Massachusetts, which we were talking to you about earlier. And I was doing my art stuff. I was painting. I was selling my artwork online and trying to, grow my own personal brand. And Strive and Grind was more of Kevin's baby. And I was just kind of like the graphic designer, without me, he couldn't really build everything. So we were just I was helping him with that. But I never really looked at it as my thing or, it's your thing. And so I really had a lot of trouble figuring out how I can do both. And I came to the realization, I made the decision to just go all in with Kevin on Strive and Grind. And that helped us, with our relationship, with communication, and really with our success, just being on the same page 100%. And I'm not saying that you can't do other things on the side, but I know for me, I had to be self-aware and make the conscious decision to just go all in with Kevin on Strive and Grind. And it's, reaped its own successes.
Your company helps entrepreneurs through branding. But for someone listening in our audience right now, why is branding so important for an entrepreneur or a company if they wish to be successful?
Branding is the most important thing that you can focus on in your business.
We don't care what anyone else says.
Sales is important, growing your audience. Everything is important, but branding is most important because it's the overarching umbrella. Because what branding is, it's first not your logo, it's not marketing, it's not your website. Branding is the overall picture. It's basically an emotion. It's the perception of what your clients, customers, and your audience thinks about you. It's what they're saying, it's what they're thinking, and what they're feeling about you. And so a lot of times people will say, yeah, we do branding. And people are like, oh, so you do marketing? It's like, no, we do branding. It's all about this intangible asset to your business, which is all based around emotion. And it's so important because you think about the big brands like Nike and Apple, the reason why they're so successful is because they focus on their brand and they hold brand as priority. When you do sales, your sales conversations is part of your branding. Your website is part of your branding. Your uniforms and storefront, your email marketing, all of those different touch points is branding. And basically your brand, think of it as like the overall full puzzle that's put together. And then all those different touch points are just puzzle pieces that make up the overall brand.
Yeah, and so it's very important to value that brand and constantly be working to improve it, because that's the only way that you're really going to differentiate yourself from your competitors. A lot of entrepreneurs, when they start their own business, they're like, oh man, I got this really good idea. Or, hey, I see someone else said, hey, this is an easy business model. It's very easy. They got this system that everyone uses. Like you're going to make $100,000 or you're going to make your first 6 figures in your first 12 months. And everyone's doing the same exact thing. So it comes down into put yourself in your customer's shoes. Like, why would they choose you versus somebody else? If you're doing literally 100% of the same exact thing as your competitors are, if your website looks the same, if your copy looks the same, your video messaging looks the same, your customer experiences look the same, every single thing, all your touch points, if those all look the same, you're nothing but a commodity. However, when you have a brand and something that's individual to you and unique, and you know what you stand for, you know what you stand against, so you have your own message and you're creating a movement and people can actually get behind it, and you actually value your customers and you put them first over the profit, and you know that when you put them first, that more profit's going to come to you because they're going to tell more people to come to you. Like, once you start thinking in that way of like that frame of thinking and that thought process, opportunity is going to be endless for you. But when you bottle yourself up into just being in the game of Me Too business and not valuing brand and just valuing transaction, you're leaving everything else on their table that's going to set you up for success for the long term.
You mentioned about being unique. Do you think that comes from being authentic with your brand and who you are?
Absolutely. Every single brand has a personality. So, when it comes to a brand, it's all about, if it were a person, what would it say? What would it wear? What would it do? Where does it hang out? What kind of music does it listen to? What kind of people does it like to hang around? You have to get really, really clear on that. And a lot of people don't. So when you go to Strive and Grind's website, you'll see that we have a certain personality to our brand that is very edgy, very cool, very, very Southern California vibe to it, trendsetters, fashion forward, knows their stuff, confident. Like, that's the vibe that you get. So it doesn't matter if you go to our website or you buy our service or you talk to any of us or a team member at a conference or an event, or you meet us this place or that place. All of our touch points are on point and they're all consistent, they're all cohesive across the board. And so I think, Devona and I both can vouch for this. Authenticity is massively important, because if you're not true to yourself and you're not true to your message, then you're going to be like everybody else, because a lot of people are in the Me Too business. A lot of people are in the generalized space. But when you have something that's edgy and you have something that the colors just look like you, or their font systems look like you, or you have a certain kind of music that all your videos play on, and you have just a certain look and vibe and how you got a little pep to your step and all that kind of stuff and swagger. If you could bring that individuality and uniqueness to your business and your brand, you're going to attract actually more people who like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that applies to both personal brands and, just company brands. And
I know this was a problem for me, and I know it might be a problem for others out there listening. But a part of being authentic is being open and honest. Do you think some people are scared of showing others who they are for fear that they might not like them?
Of course. I think that's just something that's natural in human nature. And especially if you're starting out, I mean, a lot of fears kick in the most, I think, when you're starting a business or you're going into entrepreneurship, because you might feel like you're not the expert, or there's always going to be somebody that's better than you, and you're always trying to reach the top, and it's just like, I don't know if I can be my true self. Maybe you have to be super professional, and it's usually not till later down the road when you realize and you look back on like old videos or old posts or whatever, and you're just like, oh man, like why was I being like that? That's not even who I am. And it's a freedom, to actually let loose and be yourself. And of course, I mean, you have to still be yourself and be professional depending on, what your business is and who you're trying to target and what services you offer. But at the same time, at the core, like, you have to be authentic, because then you're just going to be sounding like everybody else. You're not going to really connect with people. People can see through all the bullshit that you put out, and they can see through like this wall that you might put out. So
yeah, I think it comes down to being you or figuring out who you have to become to actually attract the people that you want. And so we're all about continuous growth and improvement and personal development, all of that. But in order for us to level up, we got to foresee ourselves being at that next level. I think a lot of people, they hear other people's content, or they read other people's content, or they listen or watch other people's content, and they try to pretty much regurgitate the same exact thing that individual said, or that message, how that message landed for them. But what we would recommend is, hey, instead of saying the same exact thing you heard on someone else's podcast or you read in a book, why don't you actually try that for yourself and share what your experience was around that? Now you're actually talking from your true, authentic self versus sharing just someone else's message. A lot of people like to use Gary Vee's hustle or Grant Cardone's sales talk and this, but that's their swagger. That's their own unique individuality and their own way of saying whatever they say. But what if your message was, hey, if you were going to use someone else's message, you could easily say, hey, this is what so-and-so talks about. I've tried that for myself, and here was my experience around it. And it's that simple. Now other people will see, like, you have real experience because you tried it for yourself, and now you're sharing your feedback and thoughts based on that experience.
Kevin and Devona, I just wanted to say this interview has been excellent so far, and now we're going to enter the Lions round. I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions before we end the show today.
Sounds good.
What would you say to someone who's just starting out and going after their dreams?
I would say you need 3 things. You need patience, and you need consistency, and you need drive.
Yeah. And I would say that you're going to fail. That's just going to happen. We can all try to say, hey, we got to be perfectionist. This has to be perfect for us to launch, or we're going to do this. We got to do that before we have that next meeting with someone, or we have that conversation, or launching the product. But, get it out there. Don't let these certain things that's going on inside your head, the thoughts going inside your head, the people that you're surrounding yourself with, don't let that hold you back. Failure is a prerequisite to success. And failure doesn't necessarily mean that, you just failed, you didn't do a great job, or you didn't get the outcome you want, and now your life sucks forever. Failure is all about you take that experience. Maybe it wasn't the best experience, but you learned something from it. I look at problems as opportunities. And so, yeah, on the front layer, on the external, it may be a problem and it may suck. But on the back end, behind the scenes, it's just another opportunity for you to get it right the next time. It's an opportunity for you to put a tweak here in your messaging. It's an opportunity for you to just get your product or service right in this way, or change that color scheme just a little bit so it'll land better the next time for whoever that prospect or customer is for you. So that's our thoughts and feedbacks on, what would you do when first starting out?
Do you happen to have 2 or 3 books that you'd recommend for our audience to read?
I'll let Kevin do this one.
Yeah, so my number 1 book of all time, I just stumbled across this book 3 months ago, and it's cool because I just met this guy. We had an intimate dinner with him last weekend. But the book is called Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got by Jay Abraham. And the book is so phenomenal. To me, that book, from a business perspective, is easily worth $500,000 to $1 million. Easily. So that book is awesome. Definitely check it out. It's going to be game changing for you. The other would be Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and Outwitting the Devil.
And last question of the day, where can our audience find you?
You can find us at striveandgrind.com. That's strive, the letter N, grind.com. And then you can also find us individually at kevinstimpson.com and devonasstimpson.com.
And Kevin and Devona, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with our audience.
Yeah, of course. It was fun. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Trevor.
Thanks for listening to Become the Lion. Everything from today's show will be in our show notes on our website. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Till next week, don't stop grinding.